Hey, this is Judah Mantell for SceneForge Studio, and in this video I'm going to go over version 0.6.46 as a couple improvements to the way the timeline animation system works that'll really improve your previs and animatic design workflow. So let's jump right in. So I have this scene here. It's the interrogation room scene that I worked on previously in a different video. And you can see we have our characters, a nice color grade, and I have some camera keyframe positions on the timeline. So you can see as I scrub through, the camera will move between showing this guy, then the second character, and then over here it scrubs to a top-down view of the table to show all the evidence he has against this character. And if I go into shoot mode and click play, you'll notice a couple things. The first is that the animation is very choppy, and by that I mean is that it starts and stops very abruptly. That's because behind the scenes, each keyframe uses a linear curve, effectively meaning that there is no curves and therefore no smoothing applied to the animation. It just starts and stops. So to fix this, we can right-click on any keyframe and switch from linear, which is the default, to ease, which eases out the in and out points of that keyframe. So you can see now if I play it back, the motion is much smoother. It smooths it out on the inbound and outbound of this position on the timeline. And I can do this with any keyframe. So I'll do it over here, and I'll do it over here as well. So now in total, we result in a much smoother animation overall, just like that. But we still have this aggressive over-the-top motion between this character, and then finally the table. In most cases, you're probably just going to want to cut between those points rather than actually moving the camera through 3D space. Now, previously there wasn't a good way to do that. We either had to use a different timeline altogether or a million different keyframes, and it just wasn't ideal. Now we can. So rather than an actual animation system, such as linear or ease, we can switch to a hard cut. So for example, between this point and this point, on the destination keyframe, which is this one, we can right-click and switch to the third option, which is simply cut. And you see now it switches the image to a hard stop. And when I play it back, we just get this shot all the way through until it hits this block, and then it'll switch to the second camera position, just like that. And then we still get the top pan over to our desk. You'll see that when I do scrub through, and I'm not actually playing it back, we still do get that camera motion in the frame. That's just a limitation of the way the timeline system currently works, but I do find it useful for previewing the actual camera motion if the camera were to animate between those points. It's just a helpful way of just seeing the path of the camera. Now I could take this one step further, and rather than this animation here, I can switch this to a hard cut as well. And so now when I play it back, you'll see we cut to our guy here, he's talking, and then immediately we show the table over here. Now you'll see that to elongate the time between this position and this position, I actually added a duplicate keyframe over here. That's so if I did want to animate this, I can move this wherever I want, and the animation's not going to start until this secondary keyframe. That's just a little useful trick for adding extra sections if you are using animation. But of course, if you're simply cutting between them, you don't have to do that. But you'll see without the keyframe, the animation will start immediately when it hits this one over here. So just keep that in mind. But to play this back one last time, you can see I can start it, it'll cut to that guy, and finally cut to showing the evidence on the table as he's talking about it. And because this is all on the timeline just like any other keyframe, you can render this out to a video, just as you would in previous versions, with no trouble. But what this is also great for is quickly prototyping storyboards without having to actually take a snapshot, saving that file to your computer, and so on and so on. This is a much faster and more, safe way of editing your camera paths if you'd like it. So, for example, I can just have these camera positions. Let's say I want the camera to start over here. And I can take a keyframe snapshot. Then I want it to move over here, take another keyframe, and I can rearrange these as needed without having to actually download any files to my computer, any images. And you can see it'll play back this way. And then once I'm satisfied with the order of my shots, I can take the snapshots by scrubbing through and then positioning them in storyboard mode as I want, which is super useful as well. And so with that has been everything in this version. I hope you get good use out of these features for previs and animatic design. I will see you in the next video.